In 1964, the world gave birth to two babies. Born minutes between each other and miles apart, these two babes would go on to change the course of history and the shape of the entertainment world as we know it today. Pauline Drewbrad and Colin Fox, later to be named Colin Cox, were born on Monday 24th of February 1964. It was a cold day and it was also wet, but it didn't stop these two young pups from jumping out of their mother's falafel.
Chili sauce?
Pauline Drewbrad was born in Stoke Royal Infirmary at 10:25 Greenwich Mean Time. He weighed in at 2 pounds. His mother and father were delighted when this sprightly young sprog entered the world. Pauline grew up to be a boy, and after 3 years as being dressed as a girl, his family decided to swap the pink for the blue. Paul, as he was affectionately known by various jazz musicians, was a dab hand at DIY and fencing. Here's his friend Albert Sidwell.
I remember, he could paint a fence, but he fenced. Silly bugger.
After going to school at Ayers Bottom Primary Church of England, Paul would often come home and have his tea, except on Wednesday when it was called dinner. His meals would consist of
Potatoes!
and leeks, a few pieces of cheese, and several endangered mammals. While at primary school, Paul majored in sports science and rambling, escorting many a summer camp up to the Malverns, where he would carry out PowerPoint lectures on biomechanics.
I liked it because I could look at my legs.
It wasn't until Paul finally left education altogether in 1982 that he realized his full potential as a welder. His mother, Dave,
I would often come home and he would say, "Oh Mum, don't worry about the hole in my trousers. I've welded some lead to my knee."
after a brief spell as a postman and providing the stock story for the 1980s film The Postman Always Rings Twice, Paul began a career in the food industry where he met Colin. Colin Cox was a humble man, but before that he was a terror. Once he was born, Colin had an appetite for destruction. He would often destroy entire ant colonies with a single kettle, later moving on to more brutal mass murder with salt and slugs. Colin didn't have many friends due to his antisocial behaviour, and it would be years until the Labour government would coin the term ASBO. Yet he still managed to let one person into his life, his school friend, David Davidson. He takes up the story here.
I like my name.
After a period of cold turkey and sprouts, Colin's behaviour started to settle down, and he met Paul at a fishmonger's in Coventry. It was here at the originally entitled fishmonger's Fish, 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 Fish that Colin and Paul would start their lifelong collaborations as an artistic duo. Their first exploration into the world of art came in the late 60s after they had both seen David Bowie and the Spiders from Mars. They performed a piece of contemporary dance based on different shades of ice. It wasn't well received. One local newspaper called it
Rubbish. I care little for ice. I don't really care for its shading either.
The explicit nudity brought wider exposure, but due to a spate of carpet burns, the show was axed just after 3 performances. Next up, the duo would decide to tackle the tricky subject of big band music in a piece entitled I've Got the Horn. Again, after initial interest from the elderly gentlemen and homosexuals, the performance was a flop. Art critic Simon Pope saw both of the pieces and believes the pair were misunderstood.
They talked in French. Nobody likes the French, so why talk in French? Idiots.
The duo soon started a long-running friendship with the made-up theatre director Dave Fish. Their first collaboration was a Christmas piece entitled Xmas Ghosts, which was based on a story penned by Lib Dem MP Stephen Williams. The play bombed, but found its way to Hungary, where it was performed by Tony Pakos, accompanied by the Hawk and the Hacksaw. The three went their separate ways after a fourth piece, called Smoking Cats, was axed prior to their debut performance due to a lack of interest from the RSPCA. Later, the three were reunited in 2003, where they started work on Richard Foreman's The Cure. It was a massive success, where venue and Banksy lover Steve Wright gave it a glowing review.
I fucking wet myself laughing at those stupid cunts.
Dave Fish died of a made-up disease that didn't exist. At the funeral, Colin and the other one decided they would work on one last performance in memory of their friend who didn't exist. Tragedy again struck a sick blow. On the opening night of the performance of the first day of Christmas, Colin Cox and Paul Drewbrad died during the performance. It has still remained a mystery as to how the accident happened, but the members of the audience say that there was something in the air that night. The stars were bright. Fernando. As the two bodies lay on the stage, the performance only known as the Hungarian Christmas Dance was never to be finished. Until now. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the Hungarian Christmas Dance.